Hello everyone, this is Mr. Harper. We want to talk about the last section of our nutrient unit that we've been studying. And this last section deals with if you have a nutritional deficiency, how do you apply fertilizer to a field, to a garden, to a lawn? There's several ways you can do this. That's what we want to talk about in this last piece. The first way is a very common way. It's called broadcasting, and that is a way to spread the fertilizer uniformly over a field or over a lawn. It's common with crops. It's common with sod. You can spread liquid fertilizer like this. You can spread dry fertilizer. And usually when you broadcast fertilizer, you want to follow with irrigation, so you want to water that in a little bit if you can. So very common way. You go to a garden center, you buy a fertilizer spreader, and you put some fertilizer in it, and you walk behind it and across the lawn, and it just spreads the fertilizer out, throws it out. Little wheel underneath the fertilizer that spins and throws that fertilizer out. It's the most common way of spreading dry granular fertilizer, broadcasting method. Second way is called banding, and it's just what it sounds like. This is more common in farm fields. You spread the fertilizer in long bands or lines right alongside a big row of crops that you have. Maybe you have a field that you planted corn in. It's all standing in a line, and you could spread that fertilizer instead of over the entire field. You literally spread it right here in a band right alongside where the plant's growing. This way you use less fertilizer because you're not putting it in the middle of the rows. You're just putting it right beside the plant, and it's very easy for the fertilizer to dissolve in the soil in that area, and then the plant's roots are right there to take it up. So it's a more efficient way of spreading fertilizer, but only if you've got the crop growing in a row. Another way is called side dressing. This is more common in like a garden, where you've got a plant, maybe not growing in a row, and you put a little fertilizer right alongside that plant. You could do this in a flower bed. You could do this alongside shrubs or trees. That commonly done along young plants, but not necessarily just that. But you're going to put a little bit of fertilizer around each one. It's called side dressing. Another way of spreading fertilizer is called fertigation. This is for water-soluble fertilizers, and it's just for in a liquid application. It's a very economical, efficient way to do this. Greenhouses do this all the time, where every time they water the plant, or most times they water the plant, they put a real dilute amount of fertilizer right in with it. So they have this big tank, and they mix fertilizer in with that, and it goes through the tubes. So because most greenhouses have automatic watering systems. You can see right here an automatic watering system. Every time that it sprays a little bit of water onto the plant, it's also spraying fertilizer. Very dilute fertilizer happening all the time. It's called fertigation. Slow release fertilizers. They're just what they sound like. They're a fertilizer that is coated with it's a big pellet because it's coated with a material around the nutrients, and that coat slowly dissolves over time. And as it dissolves, the nutrients that are inside of that slowly get released. So you can put in a pot that you're growing, maybe in this big greenhouse operation. They put a little bit of slow release fertilizer in the soil media when they mix it. And when they plant the plant, that slow release fertilizer is right there in the soil, so it slowly breaks down and fertilizes the plant as it grows. It's expensive, but you only have to use a little bit of it. You use slow release fertilizer when we made our soils, and we put that right in with the soil. Or this is an expensive way. You need special equipment to do this, but soil injection. This is usually done by farmers. Anhydrous ammonia is a liquid under pressure. It's a gas if it wasn't under pressure. And farmers will pull these big tanks behind their tractors and equipment that takes that liquid and injects it right in the ground, right along the plants. This is usually done, actually, I shouldn't say right along the plants, because it's usually done right before the seeds are planted. But it's a way of, especially of getting nitrogen into the soil. Not a common way except for farmers. Here's another uncommon way, a foliar application, which is when you spread the fertilizer directly onto the foliage or the leaves. Done to correct a nutrient deficiency, can be very costly, and it could also be poisonous if you don't do it right. So this is really a thing for professionals to do, and usually it's a farming kind of application. But a foliar application, spread it directly on the foliage or the leaves. So those are the methods of fertilizer application. Let's talk really quick about some careers that you could have if you were interested in this line of work. You could be a scientist that's working to develop new ways of making fertilizers. You could be in sales of those things. You might have to have an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree in horticulture or something to do those kinds of things, as well as maybe some experience. Or you could be a composting operator. Composting is when they take large amounts. There's a couple of facilities around Columbus that take large amounts of yard waste. That yard waste could be grass clippings, it could be leaves, it could be plant roots, it could be small branches or even medium-sized branches. And they grind that stuff all up and they make big compost piles, huge compost piles. And they, over time, all that material breaks down, it becomes compost, and it's sold as mulch. Lots of jobs that can be done are in this area. You could be working, running a piece of heavy equipment to work on making that mulch. You could work in sales. You could work in office. You could be the scientist that's in charge of how doing all of those things. So a composting operator is another career. So we've talked on this last part, methods of fertilizer application. By far, if you're working outside in landscape, it's going to be the broadcast method that you're going to be doing most. If you're working in a greenhouse, you're going to be doing that fertigation method. All right, we'll talk more next time.